All right, let's do this. It is a November 20th edition of Flyers Daily with Jason Myrtetus as the Flyers get set to continue their 5-game homestand tonight against Carolina. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Flyers look to avenge a loss that they had just 2 weeks ago against Carolina. That was on November 5th. That was that 6-4 game in Carolina that kicked off that little 3-game road trip, Carolina, Tampa, and Florida. 29 seconds left in the third period. Carolina grabbed the lead and they got the empty netter and won it 6-4. With Carolina, in kind of preparing for this episode and this preview, looking at their season, first of all, it's not hard to realize why they have the record they have. They're in the second spot in the Metropolitan Division through 17 games, a record of 13-4. They're plus 27 in goal differential, only behind the Caps in the division. Matter of fact, that's the second highest in the Eastern Conference and the third highest in the NHL. Winnipeg is plus 31. But you look at kind of all the key elements to a good team in the NHL. What's the number one key element? Goals allowed per games played. Very important number. I always think keeping the puck out of your net is actually more important than putting it in the other net. A team that can defend, I think, can win in different ways. Carolina, 5th in the NHL, only allowing 2.41 goals per game. Only teams ahead of them, Dallas, Minnesota, the Rangers, and the Winnipeg Jets. So they're doing a good job keeping out, even without Freddie Anderson, who was playing really well, but he's dealing with some injuries right now. But you do got to put the puck in the net to score. It's a race to 4 league, and they average exactly 4 goals per game, 3rd in the NHL. Only teams ahead of them, the Capitals and the Winnipeg Jets. So those two categories, very good. Power play. When you look at the power play of the Carolina Hurricanes, where does that rank? It's not quite as at the top, but it's the 8th ranked power play in the NHL at 23.7%. Flyers improved this year, 19% or 19th in the league, 17.7%. They got to get that number back up above 18.5, though. They've gotten some sporadic power play goals of late. A lot of that number is buoyed from the early season part of it for the Flyers and the effectiveness of the power play. The PK, Carolina, 5th in the NHL on the penalty kill at 85%. Flyers sitting at 4th in the NHL at 86.4%. But the reason why Carolina is good is you look at all of those things. Goals allowed per games played at the top of the league. Goals for, top of the league. Good power play, good penalty kill. They also do a tremendous job of shot suppression. I mean, they give up just over 25 shots per game. 25.4 is what they give up. Why? Because they always have the puck. They're a team, maybe the best puck possession team in the entire league. So good at it. And when they lose possession, getting it back and then maintaining it. So Carolina, an absolutely legit team. And I wasn't sure with some of the changes they had there in the offseason if that was a team that was going to be able to compete at that level again. Now, for Carolina, it's going to come down to, can they advance really far in the playoffs? That's been the thing with this team. We'll see if they're able to do that, but they're really getting a good season from Martin Necas. A lot of conversation in the offseason that he wanted out or it wasn't getting the playing time or the role that he wanted on the team. He and Rod Brindamore seemed to come to an agreement. Okay, I'll give you the role if you give me this. And he's given them in 17 games, 11 goals, 19 assists, and 30 points, 4 on the power play, 8 power play assists. And he is leading the team by a ton in points, by 14 points over the second leading scorer, which is Svechnikov, who's got 16. So 30-16. Sebastian Aho up there as well with 15 points in 17 games. Shane Gostisbehere on the blue line's got 13 in 17 games as well, including 3 power play goals for Shane Gostisbehere. I wonder if he's got that blast going from the point. So, again, not hard to figure out why Carolina is where it is. Kochetkov has kind of carried the most of the goaltending duties for this team with Freddie Anderson out. He's played in 11 games. Gaudy record, 9-2. He's got a 904 save percentage, which isn't that great. It's not stunning, although save percentages are coming down a little bit. But he's been good for him. 2.42 goals allowed per games played for Pyotr Kochetkov. So we'll likely see him tonight. We'll see where the Flyers go in goal tonight. I thought Kolosov was good in that game. I know Fedotov was good in his last three. So do you go right back to Fedotov against Carolina? I think that's more likely than going with Kolosov. We'll see if Morgan Frost draws back into the lineup coming off the loss on Monday in the second game of the homestand against Colorado. So Flyers have some decisions to make. We'll see if Cam York's back. Saw him at practice yesterday wearing a regular jersey, but he's been in that regular jersey for a little while. The only player in a non-contact jersey was Jamie Drysdale in that practice. Travis Sanheim did not practice yesterday. However, I did have a chance yesterday to sit down with John Tortorella before practice. And that's not because Travis Sanheim has any injured or maintenance or anything. It's because I asked Torts in the taping of Hockey and Hounds, how do you manage his minutes? Because on Monday night, Travis Sanheim, with the amount of guys that they're missing, considering the opponent, played 31:07 in ice time. And he said, we're not even letting him on the ice today. We told him no. He wanted to go on the ice, but they said they have to manage his energy with the amount of minutes he's playing. Again, he doesn't play a lot of conserve your energy type hockey when he's out there, Travis Sanheim. He really covers a lot of the ice, which can be even more exhausting. So he was not at practice yesterday. So we'll see where they go. We'll see where this whole thing kind of develops and how it plays out. Do you take Helge Grans out of the lineup if Cam York comes back in? I thought Grans was good. Now, he's a right shot guy too. So maybe Eric Johnson comes out and Grans stays in. But I thought Grans had a really good showing for his first NHL game. Didn't seem like he was overwhelmed by it. And look, you're playing the top point getter in the NHL right now in Nathan McKinnon, a guy that can really make you look bad pretty easily with his speed and power combination. And I thought Grans hung in there, got a lot of ice time in the third period. Does Zamula maybe come out? He didn't play in the third period in the game against Colorado. If Cam York returns, we'll see how that kind of all gets divvied up for tonight. So there's some of the question marks going into the game. What does the blue line look like tonight? If Cam York is available, who's in net? What are the line combinations up front once again? Is Tyson Forster moved up in the lineup? He's got a couple of goals of late. I know they'd like to get him going and maybe like him to shoot a little more. He's banging and getting the 2 goals that he's gotten recently down around the blue paint, which is good. But he's a shooter. I'd like to see him shoot a little bit more. Kind of what I preached to Owen Tippett last year. Shoot now and ask questions later. Be more selfish because you've got one of those shots. Tyson Forster's got one. It's why he was drafted in the first round. So we'll see if Forster moves up in the lineup and how that plays out. But going back to Carolina real quick and looking at their season, again, we say, okay, we see all the measurables, why they're as good as they are. But how good are they? And kind of what is their, they don't have the top record in the league, not even the top record in the division. They lost their first game of the season 4-1 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Then the next 11 games, they went 10-1. They scored 49 goals and only gave up 24 over that stretch. Then they lost a game. They lose the one game to Colorado, oddly enough, 6-4. And then they have 5 games after that. So their win streak's over. And then they have the 5 games after the one loss, after, again, 11 games going 10-1, and then, or 4 games, excuse me. And they've gone 3-1 in those 4 games. And again, going right back to it, 14 goals for, 7 goals allowed. Usually when a team ends a streak of winning 10 of 11, you don't just lose one straight. And they did it on a road trip. They lost that first game to Colorado in Colorado. Then they won the next one 2 days later, 5-2 over Vegas. And then they went to Utah. They lost that game, but came back home after that trip, beat the Senators 4-0, and then beat the Blues. So some good opponents in there, some mediocre opponents in there. But this Carolina team, I think, is one of the interesting teams when you look at them of how to build a team. If you're not going to go scorched earth, tear it down to the studs, try and draft in the top 3 years in a row, then they're a team that's a good example of it. Drafting guys, developing them, and really putting the pieces that fit together on the ice. It's not just about a collection of talent. It's about collecting the talent that works with each other, works with your system, offensively, defensively, works with your culture, and then putting those pieces together to work in the fiscal puzzle as well of contracts. Carolina has done a really nice job with that, and that's why they've been sustainable where they are, and they didn't go scorched earth and have all these draft picks that are all from the top of the draft. They've done a nice job in the way that they've built it there in Carolina. So it'll be a tough matchup tonight, but the Flyers had a 3-game win streak. The loss on Monday, look to get back and finish this homestand well, getting of the final 3 games of the homestand tonight against Carolina, and then Saturday against Chicago. Now, remember that game the Flyers played against Chicago coming down the stretch last year that they ended up losing and really was costly to their chances of making the playoffs. And then next Monday, they will take on the Vegas Golden Knights. Of those 6 possible points, for this homestand to be a really good homestand, they got to get 5 of those 6, if not 6. This team's been playing better of late. You got to come away with the points in the homestand. They got to be better on home ice. We'll see if they're able to do that. I got this note from Kyle. I got a DM from Kyle, and I thought it was interesting. It's just a really quick question. He said, "Hey, Jason, love the content you're producing, the podcast, broadcast roundtable et al." He said, "I was curious what Torts is writing on his piece of paper as the game is going on. Is it penalties, little marks about individual players? I'm sure each coach is different, but I was curious." Thanks, Kyle. Kyle, thanks for the note. I'm not sure what he writes on. He is constantly tabbing things down. I think what you said could be little notes on specific players. Could be something that he's seeing with the opposition. He wants to write a little note to himself to reinforce that during the intermission to hey, they're jumping, they're pinching down the right side every time we try and flip the side of the ice in the D zone. And here's how to deal with it. It could be notes like that. Could be time markers on the clock where he wants then to go back in with his video coaches and pull the video for something to look at, or something to pull the video clip to talk about either in that game or going forward. It's a lot of different things. I think sometimes it might even be just how often he's getting certain guys out there, because with all the special teams play, and we saw that against Colorado, it can disrupt the flow of the bench. So yeah, every coach is different. I'll have to ask him what he's writing on that. I don't know that he'll answer me on the record, as in like when I'm talking to him for Hockey and Hounds, honestly, but I may be able to obtain that information. I'll see if I can find out what he is writing there. But usually, yeah, just about every coach behind the bench and assistant coaches as well are always looking at things that they jot down and some notes that they may have, matchups and those kind of things. So always something to kind of, every guy's different and what they want to do. But I'm not sure exactly what it is Torts is writing, but I think we're basically on the right track. He's a coach that I think measures things very quickly, but it's funny because a lot of times you'll hear him post game and he'll have a certain impression of that game and what he just kind of went through in the flow of the game. And he'll, his recall in that moment is whether it's, positive or negative or somewhere in between. And then the next day he'll say, I went back and I looked at the tape, and after looking at it, I don't think this opinion that I had last night is correct. And obviously you can see it from a different perspective from up above on the tape. But he is a guy that will have those kind of instant reactions with the emotion attached in the game. And then upon further review and looking at the tape, maybe that changes what you thought you saw or what you can see in a limited view situation from the bench. So let's face it, Torts is not the tallest guy in the world either. So not looking over the game from the bench. So I'm always interested in his thinking and kind of what goes through his thought process. And one of the things we talked about quite a bit this week on Hockey and Hounds was about coaching the mind. It's something he likes to do, is coach the mind, let Brad Shaw, let the assistants kind of handle the X's and O's a little bit more at the granular level, and he'll coach the mind of the player, and the motivation and all of those things, the accountability, the standard. And the one thing I had asked Torts about was, we talk about belief a lot of times in the team structure, but individual belief of a player in himself. And the reason I asked it is because of Matvei Michkov. I think Matvei Michkov's got so much internal belief in his offensive skills, which is why he scores that goal against Ottawa in overtime on Linus Ullmark on a dead angle, which is why he almost scored off the head and crossbar of Levi in the Buffalo game from below the goal line. I think that he's got so much belief that I can score from anywhere, and which is why he's got the guts to try what he does, and which is why he's successful at it. He believes he can do it. Therefore, he fulfills the prophecy. Sometimes we talk about a self-fulfilling prophecy of things not happening. You got to believe it. And the one thing I asked Torts about is, can you kind of coach players, coach the mind to instill belief in them like he has? Because I think there's some guys that don't have that belief right now. And look, maybe that belief comes and goes. Obviously, with Morgan Frost, who's out of the lineup, he's got maybe a lack of belief, a lack of confidence in what he can execute right now. I think Owen Tippett goes through that. I think Tyson Forster has gone through that. A lot of guys do. I think Joel Farabee is dealing with that right now. And it causes you to squeeze the stick, whatever you want to call it. I just don't see Michkov ever suffering from a lack of belief in his ability to dictate the terms of the game, execute offensively, score, and set up plays. And look, he's a special talent. And there may be times when his belief is shaken a little bit, but there hasn't been a time yet this year where I've seen that. And this is, again, a 19-year-old kid coming in that didn't speak a word of English when he got over here. And boy, he's got all the belief in the world in himself. And you just hope something like that can be contagious, that other guys can grab onto it. We haven't seen that yet. There's a lot of guys on this team that need to get going offensively. Sean Couturier had the huge game against Minnesota. They need more from him offensively. I think he's played well, but they need more from him offensively. He doesn't need to carry them offensively, but you need some. You need some more from other guys as well. Ryan Poehling doesn't have a goal this season. Scott Lawton's 2 goals came both in the Seattle game. I like to see those guys chipping in a little more. You got to get, if you're going to be a team that is an ensemble that creates your offense and scoring, got to get more guys going. The ensemble's got to get bigger. So we'll see if they're able to do that. That'll determine how they end this road trip or this homestand. If they're going to get it 5 out of 6 points, or God willing, 6 out of the 6 remaining points on this 5-game homestand, then it's going to have to come from multiple people up front. Look, Travis Sanheim's providing it on the blue line. That helps. Cam York was prior to him getting injured. Emil Andre was driving a lot of offense. You got to get it from all over, and we'll see if they're able to do that beginning tonight against Carolina. Interesting one on tap at Wells Fargo Center tonight. I'll tell you what, we'll break it down tomorrow. We'll break down Flyers, Canes, and we'll have much more. So why don't you join us then? Enjoy your hockey tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a brand new Flyers Daily.